Hi, and welcome to the Bible Tribe Word of the Day. I'm Denise Pass with Seeing Deep Ministries, where we see deep in a shallow world and overcome the battles of the mind with the Word of God. Man strives to be great in his and others' eyes, but it is when we become less that God can make more of us for his purposes. Reading today the book of 1 Chronicles 11 through 15, and the verse of the day is 1 Chronicles 11:9. And David became greater and greater, for the Lord of hosts was with him. Word of the day is greater. It is the Hebrew word gaw-dole. The Dictionary of Biblical Languages with Semantic Domains says it means to be great, exalted, be in a state of honor, glory, and so have high status. According to the Hebrew and English lexicon, it means great in magnitude and extent, distinguished among men. Today in our reading in 1 Chronicles, we learn about David's reign, the mighty men who surrounded him, and bringing the ark back into Jerusalem. In 1 Chronicles 11, David is installed as king, finally. From the time David was first anointed by Samuel as king to the time he finally became king was like 15 to 20 years. David was appointed, then anointed 3 times by God. In 1 Samuel 16:13, David is anointed to become king of Israel in the place of King Saul, who had been rejected by God. In 2 Samuel 2:4, David is anointed to be king of Judah by the men of Judah. And in 2 Samuel 5:3, David was anointed to be accepted as king of Israel by the elders of Israel. God cares more about the process and our character than getting us somewhere fast. God is outside of time after all, so he has all the time in the world, literally. This is difficult for us as we can be impatient and our time is limited. We don't know the number of our days, but God does. The purposes of God and his plans are ultimately for his glory and purposes, but we are blessed to be able to be a part of God's purposes. Notice too that David's reign was about what God accomplished, not David. 1 Chronicles 11:9, and David became greater and greater, for the Lord of hosts was with him. As we look back into history, there is not a lot of archaeological evidence for David. The pages of history have seemingly covered up a lot of what he did, other than what the Bible records. But God's purposes in David were fulfilled in Jesus, as David was a part of establishing Israel and ultimately in the genealogy of Jesus. So why so much time? God is not in a rush. And it takes time for God to establish his purposes and to prepare his people for those purposes. I think sometimes we can see how we want God to use us, but we have no idea of the cost or the ultimate significance or sacrifice of those desires for God's purposes. Don't strive to be great in anyone else's eyes but God's. It is when we become less that God can make more of us for his wonderful, perfect purposes. Go with God and his precious word, friends, and join us tomorrow in the book of Joel.